Hello and welcome to another episode of the DVD Graveyard. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at Pumpkinhead from 1988, directed by Stan Winston, in what I believe is his directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken, because Stan Winston is known, for a lot of his creature effects and his puppetry work. He did the effects for, the creature effects for Aliens. He did the dinosaur animatronics for Jurassic Park. He did some of the effects for Terminator. Stan Winston is a really big name in the industry. And he's not directed a lot of films, I think 3 or 4. I know he's done this film. He did A Gnome Named Norm, and then he did the T2 3D Battle Across Time, which he co-directed with James Cameron, which that's the ride at Universal, which I've never seen it. I think it's shut down now around 2017, 2018. Something like that, which is a shame because I've heard it's amazing. Like I said, I've never been, but everybody I've ever heard has always just highly praised that Terminator 2 ride. I think it's supposed to be a sequel or a prequel to the events of Terminator 2, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember off the top of my head. And I do know that it is a short film. It's like 12 minutes long or 12 to 15 minutes long, something like that from what I remember. And but it ended up being like the most expensive film per minute, shot of that movie, because I think it ended up being like $6 million, if not more, off the top. Again, this is just kind of hearsay. This is what I remember, reading about this. This film, like I said, I think is Stan Winston's directorial debut, and what a great one to kick off with. Now, this movie wasn't heavily, it was one of those kind of like The Thing, or that's the big one off the top of my head, that it didn't do so well in theaters, but after the fact it really started to get a cult following. That's really kind of how this film kind of took off. I think once it hit like home video, it really kind of started to blow up, which is a shame because that it didn't do good in theaters. Again, talking about John Carpenter's The Thing, off the top of my head, because that film is one that I would kill to go back and see in theaters. Same thing with this one. I would love to see this movie in theaters. It's such an excellent movie, especially for this time of year. Like, I think that this is probably the perfect time of year to throw this movie on, is, right whenever we start to kind of get into fall, but it's not quite fall yet. It's still a little warm, but you kind of get that cool breeze in the air, and the nights are getting a little cooler. And like I said, you're approaching Halloween season and the spooky season, but you're not quite full blown in it. I think that this is the perfect movie for that. This is one of my favorite, not even just favorite creature films, one of my favorite just horror films of all time. I love this movie. I cannot get enough of it. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with I'm going to read the plot synopsis off the back of the Blu-ray I have here. I've got 3 copies of this movie. I've got one on DVD, which I've had for a long time, which is like the collector's edition. And then I've got 2 Scream Factory releases. And my wife mistakenly got me another copy of it for Christmas or for my birthday one, but I'm not complaining because I will always take double. So this one right here is the sealed Scream Factory Blu-ray that I'm going to read the plot synopsis off of. So when a group of teenagers inadvertently kill his only son, Ed Harley, played by Lance Henriksen from Aliens, great actor, seeks the powers of a backwoods witch to bring the child back to life. But instead, she invokes the Pumpkinhead, a monstrously clawed demon, which, once reborn, answers only to Ed's bloodlust. But as the creature wreaks its slow, unspeakable tortures on the teens, Ed confronts a horrifying secret about his connection to the beast, and realizes that he must find a way to stop its deadly mission before he becomes one with the creature forever. Also starring Jeff East from Deadly Blessing, Joel Hoffman from Slumber Party Massacre 2, that's a fun one, I'd like to talk about that movie at some point, and Carrie Remsen from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which I would like to also talk about that. This atmospheric, moralistic tale delivers demonic horror at its blood-drenched best. So that's a very kind of in-depth plot synopsis on this, and it really paints a really good picture of what this movie, kind of what you're going into with this movie. I highly recommend this Scream Factory Blu-ray, by the way. It has a lot of really, really good special features on it, and it has really badass cover art. I love the cover art on this. And the alternate cover art is really cool too. So anyway, like I said in the synopsis, this film stars Lance Henriksen, which, again, Lance Henriksen has been in a list of films a mile long. I was first introduced to Lance Henriksen in Aliens. He played Bishop, and he's just such a great actor. I mean, he's an amazing actor. And from what I understand, I've never met the man, but speaking to, hearing of people who have met him, he's just a really wholesome, down to earth, really nice guy. And he really he fits in this movie so well because he sells that whole kind of backwoods kind of working man, blue collar type character. Like, he fits this really, really well. And so this movie is basically about Ed Harley and his son Billy, who's played by Matthew Hurley. And they live together. I believe Billy's mother, Ed's wife, had passed away. I can't remember what she'd passed away from, but it's just them. And they run this little kind of produce store, this little store out in the middle of nowhere. And that's, I can't remember where they're at exactly, but it's in the middle of the desert, or this kind of desert looking area. And one day a group of teens just show up and they kind of start, they've got these dirt bikes. And they're staying at like this cabin, that's nearby. And they all stop at this, at the store to take photos and just kind of look around. And, they're city folk, so they don't really belong here, is kind of the vibe that you get, how Ed Harley is feeling, about these people. He's just really kind of weary of them. He's just kind of, being really short with them, not really giving them the time of day. And they're, the males in this, or one in particular, he's kind of being an asshole, and they just kind of unload their dirt bikes and they start riding around in the hills around this store. And Ed Harley has to, we meet this other little backwoods family that pulls up with a bunch of kids, and one of those kids is actually Brian Bremer, who, I recognized him from Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, and it's funny because when I was watching Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, I was like, that's a wacko freaking film. I'd love to cover that film at some point, but I was watching it and I'm like, I really recognize this guy from something, but I don't know what. Like, I could not place it. And then I was like, Pumpkinhead. I was like, that's what it is. So he's one of the backwoods kind of kids in this family that come up. And apparently, Ed Harley had forgotten to bring something up to the store for them to pick up their delivery. So he ends up having to leave, and he leaves Billy at the store by himself. So as he's gone, he tells Billy, he's like, I'll be right back. And it's really sweet kind of watching their relationship between the two of them. And it really kind of sells what happens later. And so he leaves. While he's gone, Billy runs out to catch their dog, Gypsy. And he ends up being run over by one of the kids on the dirt bike. And the main guy that's on this dirt bike, he kind of starts freaking out. He's like, oh my God, I've been drinking. They're going to send me to prison. All this, they're going to get me for murder, blah, blah, blah. So they leave. They take off, which is really, big asshole move. And one guy ends up staying with Billy's body, while they're waiting for, Ed Harley to come back. The rest of them kind of leave. They're trying to find help, trying to get to a phone. So they go to this cabin where they're going to be staying. That's whenever Ed Harley comes back and he makes the discovery that Billy has died. And the look of heartbreak on Lance Henriksen's face is just, you really feel it. You really feel everything for this man. And this is one of the most emotional scenes. Like, it almost brings a tear to my eye every time I watch it, because it's so sad, because they do such a great job of building up their relationship in the first, portion of this film. And they sell it so well that you really feel that heartbreak for Ed Harley. And he picks Billy up and he takes him back home and kind of tries to nurse him back to health. And, Billy that's whenever Billy finally does die. I apologize. He's not completely dead previously, but he dies in Ed Harley's arms, at his home, and Ed Harley just breaks down and he loses it. But he's still got a job to do, so he packs up his the stuff that he has to bring to this hillbilly family, and so he goes over to their home, their little. It's more like a hollow or like a holler or whatever the hell you call it. So he delivers it, and he starts asking the dad in this family. He's like, I hear there's a woman around here that has powers, and that's where we get this old kind of this really cool kind of backwoods witch kind of story going on. This kind of urban legend that they all kind of hear about around here. And he's like, don't go messing with it. Go home, bury your boy, and just forget about it. Leave it be, And Ed Harley's, I can't. He's heartbroken over the loss of his child, which is understandable. And so after he leaves, the young boy, Brian Bremer, he kind of hitches a ride in the back of Ed Harley's truck, and he tells him, I can take you to the witch, So he takes him down this, down deep into the woods, and he tells him, go up through here, and keep going down this road, and you will find the witch, named Haggis, played by Florence Schaffler, I think is how you say her name. So he goes to meet the witch. He brings Billy's body to the witch, and the witch basically tells him, or asks him what he wants, and he wants revenge. That's what this witch can offer to him. She can offer him vengeance. So she tells him to visit a place deep in the woods called Razorback Hollow, and tells him that there's something there that he has to bring back to her. So he leaves the body of Billy with Haggis, and he goes to find Razorback Hollow. And this is something I forgot to mention, or that I want to touch on just briefly. When we get and we first see Haggis, she is so creepy. She to this day gives me the creeps. There's no way in hell I'd be going up and talking to this woman, period. And the whole set of her little cabin is amazing. I love it. It's so creepy. There's spiders and snakes crawling around, and it just has that old, backwoods witch aesthetic to it. It's perfect. It's such a, I use this word a lot, but it's such a cozy aesthetic. It's such a, and it fits the story so well. And that's one thing about this movie is all the locations fit everything so well. And so basically, Ed Harley goes to Razorback Hollow, which is another just excellent set. Looks great. It's this old graveyard just out in the middle, or it's a pumpkin patch that was used as a graveyard. Haggis tells him that it's a place where families used to bury kin that they's ashamed of. That's what this is, but it's a pumpkin patch. And that's kind of where the creature Pumpkinhead gets its name, is it comes from this old pumpkin patch in the middle of the woods. And so he goes and he digs up this kind of old rotten looking corpse, and he brings it back to Haggis, who does a few things to it. Ed Harley ends up fainting, and that's when we see the rise of Pumpkinhead. Now, we don't really see him 100% clearly at first. They just kind of show his body, and Pumpkinhead is just one of the best looking monsters. I'm just touching on this now before I forget. He is one of the best looking creatures I've ever seen in a film, period. I believe Tom Woodruff Jr. is Pumpkinhead in the suit, and he just looks so amazing, and it's such a cool design for a creature. He looks amazing, and he's so scary, and it's just this huge, monstrous, hulking creature. And basically what Pumpkinhead's whole motivation is to take revenge on these people that have wronged Ed Harley. So it all kind of stems back to Ed Harley. So Ed Harley wakes up, he goes home, and he buries his son. It's a very emotional moment. He buries him right next to his wife, who has passed away. And then we kind of get back to the cabin, where at the cabin, this happens a little earlier, but we find out that this asshole guy who has accidentally killed Billy, he's cut the phone lines. He's locked a couple of the characters in a closet because he's not going to prison. He's not going to jail. He's holding them at gun. He's basically holding them hostage. And that's when Pumpkinhead comes and basically just starts to pick them off one by one. And we get just the whole mood and the whole vibe of what's going on at the cabin. Like, there's lightning and there's wind blowing and it's just so spooky. And when Pumpkinhead comes on screen to kill these people, he kills them so ruthlessly and so brutally. And every time he comes on screen, we get this little kind of typical rattlesnake kind of sound, or it's not rattlesnakes. I'm sorry. I think it's cicadas. It's the sound, that cicadas make. And it's so spooky. And Pumpkinhead is a badass, and he is basically he's the Terminator, except in demon form. And he is the demon of vengeance. And basically, he will not stop until all of these people are dead. So from the first kill, that's whenever we see that Ed Harley basically feels the death of all of these people. Like, he feels it inside of him. He sees it, and it really starts to kind of take a toll on him, mentally and physically. And that's such a cool concept that they worked into this, that, I don't know, like I can just go on just praising everything about this. Like it's just so amazing. The setting, the plot, the creature, the actors, I mean, everything is just amazing. So that's when Brian, a couple of them leave the cabin, and they end up running to around to all these places. The other backwoods hillbilly family, they end up running to their house trying to ask for help. And this is kind of touched on in a flashback sequence at the very beginning, but everybody knows better than to screw with it, because Pumpkinhead doesn't kill anyone unless people who get in their way, get in his way. Like if you help the people that he's seeking the vengeance on, then he will kill you as well. But if not, you're perfectly safe. So everyone is just kind of locking them out and doesn't want to have anything to do with them. A few people run them, or one guy I know runs them off with a shotgun. He's like, you're not coming around here. I'm not helping you. I can't help you. Which is so cool, and that's so terrifying, because again, that there's nothing you can do. Basically, he's not going to stop until you're all dead. Again, the Terminator, basically, kind of the same sort of motivation, in a way, or not really motivation, but the same sort of. You get the idea, but So Brian Bremer, Bunt, the boy in this one kind of hillbilly family, he decides to go help them. So he tries to help them. He ends up taking them to this church, this old burned down church, which is also another really, really cool set, because I guess he thinks that, Pumpkinhead can't come on a consecrated ground, which ends up being false, because Pumpkinhead just walks up in there and he ends up destroying a cross that's in there, to basically show like he don't give a fuck about anything, else. He's going to get his job done. And the whole time, it's lightning and there's wind and just it's amazing. And Pumpkinhead is so scary. I mean, every time you see him, you're just like, oh my God, this thing is horrifying. Like, what would I do? There's nothing I could do to really get out of this situation. And that's whenever Ed Harley kind of has a change of heart after, a couple of these people that Pumpkinhead kills, and he realizes it's wrong what he's doing, and he tries to get Haggis to reverse it, and there's no way to reverse it. It basically has to run its course, is what she tells him. So he says that he will stop Pumpkinhead himself. So he takes off, and he's going to kill Pumpkinhead. He's going to protect these kids, and they all end up meeting up, and Ed Harley kind of has this showdown with Pumpkinhead. And he's trying to protect these kids. And again, Pumpkinhead doesn't really want to have anything to do with Ed Harley. He's just kind of shoving him out of the way. And we get this really cool shot of Pumpkinhead during this scene where he kind of, you see that he's starting to take on the likeness of Ed Harley. He's kind of got the, Lance Henriksen's sort of face on his face, which is so creepy. And Ed Harley he slips and gets stuck with a pitchfork or something on his arm, and that hurts Pumpkinhead. And that's when we realize that whenever Ed Harley feels pain, Pumpkinhead also feels pain. So that kind of foreshadows, again, sort of how this is going to end. And as soon as you see that, you're like, oh no, oh no. Because you feel really bad for Ed Harley this whole movie. Because, again, all he's trying to do is take revenge for his son, which, anybody would want to, I say that casually, like, oh, all he wants to do is kill these kids who killed his son, but like, I mean, hell, I would want to do that. If somebody killed someone that I love, my child or my wife or anything like that, I would want to do the same thing. And that really kind of is what this movie plays on is if this happened to you, what would you do? If there was a way that you could go and take revenge on these people, would you not do it? Wouldn't you do? It's just like Pet Sematary. If there's a way that you could bring back a loved one who has passed away, wouldn't you do it? Even if there was a chance that they would become evil, like, that's really cool how it kind of plays on that. Like, what would you do in that situation? So anyway, Ed Harley, like I said, ends up confronting Pumpkinhead, and he comes to this realization that when he is hurt, Pumpkinhead is hurt. And so he ends up taking his own life. He shoots himself, which then kills Pumpkinhead. And Pumpkinhead falls to the ground. Ed Harley falls to the ground. And we get this excellent pan out shot of both of them laying on the ground. And then our final girl who has survived, which I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to spoil it majorly. You'll know by this point. But it kind of pans out, and then Pumpkinhead catches on fire and just burns, and there's this awesome shriek that comes out. I love this sound effect. Oh, excuse me. I love that sound effect that they play, and the fact that he burns is just so symbolic that it's over, and now Pumpkinhead is basically returning to hell, and that Ed Harley kind of righted his wrong in a way. But again, that was the whole thing with summoning Pumpkinhead, is that Ed Harley, his soul is damned, from the moment that he summons Pumpkinhead. And that really just kind of shows that he is damned. He's doomed to, he got his revenge, but at what cost? It cost him his life as well. So then at the end, that's whenever we see Haggis returning to Razorback Hollow and burying the corpse of Ed Harley, who is now all shriveled up, so that the cycle can just repeat itself. And then that's the end of Pumpkinhead. This movie, like I said, is probably one of my favorite horror films of all time. I think that Stan Winston did such a damn good job at directing this movie. He did a damn good job at the creature design. Everything about this movie works so well. I love that it started out as basically the little poem that they say at the beginning of this movie. Bolted. How does it even go? Oh my God, it's escaping me. Yes. Bolted windows. Bolted doors and windows barred, guard dogs prowling in the yard, won't protect you in your bed, nothing will, from Pumpkinhead. And that's what kind of started this whole thing, was just that little nursery rhyme. And they built on top of that. And I think that's what's so cool, is this whole movie really has that kind of backwoods sort of urban legend kind of feel to it. It's an old kind of ghost, sort of like an old grim fairy tale, and that's really what this movie is it is a fairy tale, come to life, and it's so amazing. I cannot recommend this movie enough. If you've never seen it, what are you doing? Go out and pick this movie up, on any copy that you can find and watch it, or watch it on I think it's streaming on Tubi if I'm not mistaken. But it's such a damn good movie. I highly recommend this. I cannot say enough good things about it, especially for this time of year. Like late September, early October is the time for Pumpkinhead. I think it's such a great great movie. It's loaded down with atmosphere. It's got great music, great sound effects, great effects in general. The monster looks great. The story is great. The setting is great. Everything about this movie is just amazing. Now, this movie did spawn 3 sequels. You get Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings, Pumpkinhead Ashes to Ashes, and then Pumpkinhead 4, Blood Feud. The last 2, Pumpkinhead 3 and 4, are sci-fi originals, from the early 2000s. So if that tells you anything, then, you'll know that they're not great. Now, having said that, Pumpkinhead 3, I actually don't mind too much. I actually enjoy it for what it is. It's just got some really terrible looking CGI in it, like most of those sci-fi original movies. But it's not awful. I don't hate it. I like the aesthetic of the film. I like the vibe of the film. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I couldn't, maybe watching it again sometime soon, maybe that'll change my opinion. I really don't remember much about Pumpkinhead 4 at all, to tell you the truth. I'd have to watch it again. Again, it's been so long since I've seen it, but I do know it is a sci-fi original. I don't remember hating it. I remember thinking it was all right. And Pumpkinhead 2, I say for the last, because a lot of people shit on that movie. And there are things that I dislike about Pumpkinhead 2. I will say that it is not a good movie. One thing I don't like about it is that it changes the whole kind of backstory of Pumpkinhead. It changes the whole kind of lore of Pumpkinhead, which I don't really like. But at the same time, it is a fun movie, and I do enjoy watching it. It's the only one that I really will throw on besides the first one. Like, usually I'll only watch the first movie, unless I'm doing like a marathon. But Pumpkinhead 2, sometimes if I watch the first one and I'm still in the mood, I'm like, I'll go ahead and throw on Pumpkinhead 2. Or sometimes I'll watch it just because. And I don't know, I think it's just because it's nostalgic for me. It was one of the first, if not I think it is the first Pumpkinhead film I got, because I found that at Hastings, years ago, and I didn't have the first one yet. So that was one of the first ones I got. So that was the only one I had. So that one kind of holds a special place in my heart. But having said that, it is not a great film. If you skip any, if you just watch the first one and skip all the sequels, you're not missing much, because I think that this is a perfect one and done film. I think the original Pumpkinhead stands alone perfectly fine. And again, I cannot recommend it enough. So anyway, having said that, that is Pumpkinhead from 1988. I'm hoping that in the future I can get more videos out, because I did change how I do these a little bit. Doing them the way I was before, I've decided not to go so in depth with these films like I have in the past, just because it takes so long to edit them. It takes so long to sit down, take the notes, because I like to watch these movies at least twice before I actually do a review. And that just seems like it takes so much time, and I can't get the videos out, and it just makes for a longer video. So I think I'm going to try to make them a little bit more concise, like this one. Which this one's coming up on 30 minutes, which is not very short, but anything is better than, an hour of people just listening to me talk, I guess. But yeah, so I'm going to try to make these a little bit shorter and just a little bit more to the point, and just kind of touch on kind of the main beats of the story rather than breaking down the whole film. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, stay tuned for the next episode of DVD Graveyard. Goodbye.